The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. Immediately after feeding the crowd with the 5 loaves and 2 fish, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead to the other side while he dismissed the crowds. And after he had dismissed the crowds, he went up the mountain by himself to pray. When evening came, he was there alone. But by this time the boat, battered by the waves, was far from the land, for the wind was against them. And early in the morning, Jesus came walking toward them on the sea. But when the disciples saw him walking on the sea, they were terrified, saying, "It is a ghost." And they cried out in fear. But immediately Jesus spoke to them and said, "Take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid." Peter answered him, "Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water." Jesus said, "Come." So Peter got out of the boat, started walking on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he noticed the strong wind, he became frightened, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." Jesus immediately reached out his hand and caught him, saying to him, "You of little faith, why did you doubt?" When they got into the boat, the wind ceased. And those in the boat worshipped him, saying, "Truly, you are the Son of God." The good news, the gospel of the Lord. If you've heard me say it once, you've heard me say it at least 20 times over the years, that miracles depicted in the Bible are always temporary. And also that if we are going to understand the miracles, we must look at their spiritual significance and meaning. There had just been the miracle of the multiplication of the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, feeding over 5,000 people. And then Jesus, of course, began to dismiss the crowds who had gone over the other side of the lake, Lake Tiberias, but also known as the Sea of Galilee, and asked his disciples to return by boat. So there'd just been that miracle, multiplication of loaves and fish. And now, in the midst of the high winds and waves, Jesus the next morning comes walking on the sea to them. And as you heard, they thought it was a ghost. They were afraid. And Jesus tells them not to be afraid, that it is him. And Peter says, well, if it's you, order me to come, and Jesus does. What does Peter do? At one point, he takes his eyes off of Jesus, and he becomes concerned with the wind. And then he starts doubting and being afraid, and he begins to sink, and then calls out to Jesus to help him. And it's the same for us. When we take our eyes off of Jesus, off of the Lord, and when we begin to doubt and to fear and lose moments of faith, we too begin to sink in life. And very important when that happens, that we call out to the Lord and refocus on our God. And so let us continually, in our humanity, in our weaknesses, and in our strengths, keep our eyes on the Lord. Hope in the Lord. Trust in the Lord. Give our lives to the Lord. And then we are way above the storms and the winds and the waters of life. Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen.